Good morning friends and welcome to the pre-market view. US markets continue to show a lot of strength even at record high levels, and this is the 7th consecutive sessions with positive gains. And just to put things in perspective, the Dow has actually given a return of 10% from the beginning of the year, and Nasdaq has given almost about close to 9%. And the same is the case with Japanese markets, and for the 8th or 9th consecutive session we have seen positive close for the Japanese markets, and it's one of the best performing markets, and this is led primarily by the weakness in the yen, which currently stands at about 96.60. But the same amount of optimism is not reflected in the Eurozone, and there the markets were mixed. Except FTSE, most of the other markets were down about 0.2 to 0.25%, as they have their own set of issues to deal with, like political uncertainty in Italy, and the data which are coming out from Eurozone have also not been that encouraging. But when we look at our own markets, first of all, let me take you through the flows part. In yesterday's session, FIs were net buyers in the cash market to the tune of about 987 crore. The domestic institutions were sellers to the tune of about 787 crore, and in the F&O markets, the FIs were sellers to the tune of about 68 crore. And after registering gains for the 4th consecutive session, about 5% kind of an up move at the index level, we saw some amount of consolidation and markets were marginally weak. But in the global backdrop that we are in, given the kind of flows that we are seeing, there is a case for some more upside in our markets. And on that note, let me invite Sadhana to take us through important F&O cues, data and strategies that we can have in the F&O space.
Good morning friends, let's have a view on derivatives. After the big rally last week, we have seen the Indian bourses close the session in red yesterday. And in spite of positive trade data, the markets were unable to sustain at higher levels. If you see, around 2 lakh shares were added in open interest, and significant decrease in the cost of carry indicating short positions were built up. On the options front, 5,900, 6,000 and 6,100 call as well as put strike side seen a good number of activity. And implied volatility is also shot up by 100 to 300 basis points, indicating market would remain volatile and uncertain going forward. And as we are trading above our weekly VWAP of 5,800, so bias for the market is positive. And Nifty, if Nifty manages to close above the level of 6,000, so we may see some long positions can be accumulated at those levels. Otherwise, one can book profits at higher levels. From intraday perspective, one can go long on Kane India with a stop loss of 303.50, and one can go short on Voltas with a stop loss of 83.35 and Adani Ports with a stop loss of 145. Thank you.
Here are the important news and events that we are tracking today. First of all, the IIP data for the month of Jan is going to be out, and the market is looking at a number of about 1.3% kind of a growth, as against a month-on-month of negative 0.6% kind of a growth for the previous month. This data has actually lost much of its relevance, and the market is really not reacting too much to this, except for about 5 to 10 minutes kind of a reaction when it's out. And CPI data for the month of Feb is likely to be out, which is likely to be around 10.6% versus 10.79 in the previous month. Remember friends that the CPI data continues to remain at elevated level of 10 plus, whereas the WPI index actually has shown some weakness at about 6.5%, and these data points are extremely crucial from the point of view of the monetary policy, where the RBI policy meet is scheduled on 19th of March. And if the CPI data and WPI both show some weakness, then the probability of a rate cut or a CRR cut definitely increases. And an important development, because of the weakness in the pound against the dollar, could have negative implications for Tata Motors, as most of the liabilities of Tata Motors when they did this JLR acquisition were in dollar denominated units, whereas we have seen the weakness in the pound, which could actually have some negative reaction for Tata Motors in today's market. In a negative development for ITC, even West Bengal government has decided to raise the taxes on cigarettes from 20% to 25% in its state budget. We've seen the same thing happen in Gujarat and one more state, and now West Bengal also has followed the suit, which is a bit negative for ITC. And ministerial panel will decide today on the floor price of MMTC wherein the government is looking at raising about 300 crore by selling 9.33% stake. Oracle PLC, which was earlier looking at taking the company private, has indicated that they might do an OFS to comply with the promoter holding norms, and this could be a bit negative. We've already seen the stock reacting by about 2% or so. So one can expect some negative reaction in Oracle stock in today's market. GVK Power, which is developing a 10 million Hancock coal project in Australia, has entered into a pact with Horizon to sell 51% stake in this rail and port project, which is positive for GVK. So one can go long there with a stop loss of 11 and a target of about 12. United Spirits has got the SEBI approval for one of the clause which is there in the open offer document, whereby it can sell the assets of the company and its investments within 2 years of the current time, and this is definitely positive for United Spirits. So one can go long there with a stop loss of 1905 and a target of about 2002 to about 2039. Hindustan Zinc, some positive news as Supreme Court has given a verdict in its favor in a raw relating to the royalty payment in Rajasthan. So one can go long on Hindustan Zinc with a stop loss of 117 and a target of about 124 to about 126. And some positive news for Reliance Power, as it has finally synchronized the 660 megawatts unit of Sasan Ultra Mega Power Plant with the national power grid, and is also looking at adding one more 660 megawatts of units in the next about 15 to 20 months ahead of the schedule. So this is positive for Reliance Power. One can go long there with a stop loss of 74 and a target of about 78 to 80. That's it from all of us, friends. Have a nice trading session and see you tomorrow at the same time.